been a controversial visit with gaffes, criticism of the UK and failing to fly the Union flag on his car. But has he improved the chances of power sharing in Stormont? Well, joining me now is former Labour MP and independent peer, Baroness Kate Hoey. Kate, a very great afternoon to you. Lovely to see you. President Obama threatened to put the UK at the back of the queue. Has Joe Biden actually been and done it?
Well, I think his visit here, as Dougie very cleverly said, was basically a very short one, a reasonable speech, totally scripted, not off message at all, really. But of course, he did come to actually mark the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. And he was coming in the context now that the Belfast Good Friday Agreement had the heart torn out of it. Now, that isn't just my words. That's the words of one of the people who actually helped write it, Lord David Trimble, who wrote that just shortly before he died. And the irony is that, you know, he was here not cajoling, to be fair. He made it very clear that it was up to the unionists to decide whether they'd go back into Stormont. Wasn't that very good of him to say that? But he then went on to basically put a kind of bribe there that, you know, if only we have government back in Northern Ireland, there'll be lots of investment. Well, as coming into Northern Ireland, well, as you know, Martin, the corporation tax in Northern Ireland is twice what it is over the border in the Republic of Ireland. So, you know, I don't think that's something that anyone's going to take very seriously. But in terms of actually, I don't think it's damaged relations between our country and United Kingdom and United States. I think most people probably think that President Biden has about less than a year to go. I don't think anyone here who met him or listened to him will have thought that he was going to be president for another term. And, you know, things will go back to a kind of normal. But what we did see was an absolute dedication to Irish republicanism from Biden and no real understanding of why unionists are not going back into Stormont.
Say that's about 2024 because in many ways this Irish tour felt to me like Joe Biden just playing to the galley of the American Irish vote back home. After all, there are 45 million Americans of Irish descent and they generally vote Democrat. Was Biden using Ireland for his own political gain domestically back in the States?
Well, I think he's always said that he wanted to come and visit his home, you know, his home areas. He's been once before, but not so extensively. And this will have gone down very well with those Irish Americans who actually feel very in tune with the Republic of Ireland. Of course, what he did mention, and it's good to remind viewers and listeners that you know, over 10 of the American presidents actually came from an Ulster Protestant Northern Ireland stock. So there are a lot of Irish who are kind of under that label in America who are actually quite interested in Northern Ireland. But I think that the crucial thing to me is that he actually came along and said the Windsor Framework was great. You know, this is what he praised the European Union. He praised the government for getting the Windsor Framework and didn't in any way mention that the Windsor Framework actually divides Northern Ireland from the rest of our own country. And of course he would like that because he wants to see a united Ireland. But, you know, it was a little bit sort of hypocritical and misleading of him to imply that somehow the Windsor Framework was the answer to everyone's worries, because it isn't. And it's not going to change anything about the DUP going back into government, because why should they? They would be implementing their own demise. They would be implementing separating off Northern Ireland from the rest of the United Kingdom. The Green Lanes hasn't gone. All those restrictions that the Prime Minister sort of hyped up to say is all changed, hasn't changed. None of it's changing till the autumn anyway. And in the meantime, we're going to finding more and more detail that's coming out from the European Union about just how bad this framework is, not just for Northern Ireland, but for the whole of the United Kingdom and people who really want to break away from the European Union, because this is tying us in even more to the European Union and what did the protocol.
I wanted to ask you about one of the more eyebrow-raising moments. Biden posed for a selfie with the former IRA leader, and it was a very, very insensitive moment. People were raising their eyebrows about that. How badly has that gone down at a time of celebrating that 25th anniversary and at a time where parliamentary activities are on the rise? Posing for that photograph was very insensitive, wasn't it?
Well, in related situations like that, lots of people have actually met Gerry Adams and probably shaken hands with him. I wouldn't do that, and I know a lot of my fellow colleagues wouldn't do it, but he did it. But what was sort of so galling was that he looked so happy. And when he was meeting other people, and certainly when he was meeting some of the unionist community, he wasn't grinning, and being absolutely delighted. It was almost like he wanted to have this picture for a little bit of history. So that doesn't go down well. I mean, Gerry Adams is someone who continues to say that he was never in the IRA, and people just laugh at that. So he made that. And then I think probably the most galling thing was that when he was driving around with this huge cavalcade in Northern Ireland for a very short time, he wouldn't even fly the Union flag on the other side. And yet, as soon as he goes into the Republic of Ireland, he flies the Irish flag. And that was almost just him saying, I don't really accept that Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. And I hope that the Prime Minister noted that and that he is aware of that. But having said that, he's not going to be around for an awful lot longer. So I think we just have to continue to fight to show people in the rest of the United Kingdom that the union is being destroyed and broken up by the Windsor Framework. And a Conservative and Unionist Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, is doing that.
Okay, so Kate, now once the bunting is taken down and the dust settles on all of this, the supportive Biden media are now posting the DUP as the kind of donkeys at the gate. You won't move on. You won't embrace the Windsor Framework. What's next for the DUP and a move back towards power sharing? Is there a possibility of that?
Well, it's very difficult for them because I know they're under huge pressure from everybody in terms of the establishment. Not from their grassroots members, definitely not, and not from, obviously, the traditional unionist party led by Jim Allister. But there will probably be some attempt to kind of bribe, and I hope that the DUP will have learned their lesson from that when they took money from the Theresa May government to keep the Tories in power. I hope they've realised now that they've got to be out there actually campaigning, not just in Northern Ireland, but really campaigning in the rest of the United Kingdom as to what is happening here in Northern Ireland. Part of the United Kingdom, the Belfast Good Friday Agreement that everyone's going up, celebrating and marking, has been destroyed by the fact that we have no longer got consent. The constitutional position of Northern Ireland has changed. And if the DUP were to go back into Stormont, then, they will suffer a huge backlash from their own supporters in Northern Ireland.
So, Kate, if you had to give President Biden a score out of 10 for his efforts towards preserving the union, what would you give him?
Oh, I don't think he did anything. Well, I might give him 1 for mentioning Ulster Scots in Northern Ireland. But of course, his visit to the Republic will have been hailed as a huge success. But Northern Ireland cost us a fortune, £7 million of policing. We want to get that back from our own government and not have to come from our really, really badly paid and well underfunded police service in Northern Ireland. So 1 out of 10.
1 out of 10 for President Biden. Thank you very much, Kate Hoey. I think you've been generous with that.